All right, let's go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Visual Resources Review Board for the Town of Farragut, September meeting. So the first item on our agenda tonight will be the approval of the minutes from the August meeting. Is there any discussion about the minutes as they were presented? Okay, if we have no further discussion, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so we'll move down to the ground-mounted sign applications, and we have two on here for tire discounters. We'll start with the first one, item A in our packet, Campbell Lakes Drive.
Okay, the graphics for both these sign applications are the same. It's essentially the same sign in two different locations is what they're proposing. Both signs would be 40 square foot ground mounted signs. The first sign is located down there at the corner of Campbell Lakes and Campbell Station. It's approximately 20 feet from each right-of-way line, which is also the property line, which is required for a sign of this size. It'll be an internally lit sign. Because there are two signs, they have to be located a minimum of 150 feet apart, which the second sign is up there along the north property line, so they are about 150 feet apart, but we'll want to see that verified. The proposed sign is red letters on a white background. I did want to point out that that's a little different than what y'all approved for the wall signs, which is white letter on the red brick. We didn't really see a problem with that, but we thought that it was something that we should at least point out to you all on that. They also amended their landscaping plan to reflect the new signage. They added the minimum 6 shrubs down along the base or in the general vicinity. It's really an integrated landscape plan. They had already planned to put this in, but they did do a little modification for that. One thing that staff would suggest on that, and it is really just a suggestion, is that they consider substituting some native shrubs for what they propose there. Maybe using something that they're already using in the landscape, but that is just a suggestion. We also wanted to suggest that they maybe look to modify their numbers there. They do meet the minimum requirement. They meet the minimum size. It's fine the way it is by code, but they might want to look to maybe better integrate that numbered placard into the sign. Maybe
Brick or
do some sort of, I don't know, aesthetic treatment up there where it's more integrated into the frame of the sign. That wouldn't count against them on the overall height of the sign, but that's something that we wanted to at least perhaps suggest to them that they consider doing to sort of improve the aesthetics of that sign. So again, the first sign, and we will need 2 motions for this. There are 2 different sign applications, 2 different permit applications. The first is on the corner there of Campbell Station Road and Campbell Lakes Drive. Again, it meets all the town's requirements. We'd recommend approval of it subject to the actual location being verified by a surveyor. It is tight, so we need to make sure that they're going to meet the setbacks with that, and also the 150-foot separation from the second sign.
Okay, thank you, Bart. Do we have any discussion about the tire discounter sign and some of the points that have been made there?
I have a question. Do you have by any chance, like when we approved, like you said, it was opposite, or the old, like what we approved before?
I don't hear. I have it upstairs.
That's okay.
It basically they substituted white lettering. It's the same. It looks the same. It's just white lettering on the red brick background. So they thought there was more contrast there for their wall sign. So it's almost a mirror image of this. It's white on red on the wall, and it's red on white on the sign itself.
I should have brought my other one out.
So is there, is their normal color scheme to be the red letters on the white background?
It's red and white. In fact, the roof of the building is red as well.
Right.
So it's, it's within their overall color scheme for the development as a whole, which I guess they just felt that there was more contrast here, and so that's what they wanted to go with.
Well, contrast makes sense, and the letters are certainly legible and pretty good size, pretty good height.
Could they do like the red brick at the top with that? It just seems to me, and I maybe just be picky with the 709. Could they do something like put some of the brick up there, or what does anybody else think about? I think it just looks like it's just hanging there. Now, like Taco Bell and a couple of others have it within their lit up sign, but
I'm sure
that
they
would-
could use brick. Mark was thinking that they could potentially even extend the black up there or do some sort of, swooped or angled thing where they come down from the number and bring it in.
yes.
I mean, any of those would be possibilities.
It
Again,
just needs something else.
It meets code the way it is, but we thought that, like you, that the numbers just sort of stick on top there, and, they might be able to improve the look at their sign if they
And
try
it
to
shouldn't-
integrate it in a little bit. They may not have realized that they could do that without running
against
afoul of
them.
the height,
That's what I
of the
thought,
maximum
too.
height requirement.
Do the numbers always have to be above the sign?
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay.
It would help, well, I just think that would look better, and I don't want them to go to a lot of expense, but I don't think it should, they could do that without very much cost, I think.
The way it's presented doesn't offend me, though. I mean, I think.
No, it meets
fine.
code. Yeah.
I mean, and I think it looks okay.
I think we've had a few applicants in the past where we've mentioned that, and they have done more of a curved kind
Right.
of thing with the
And it
letters.
looks a
And
lot better.
they seem to be able to do that without any trouble, from what we understood.
Which ones did it?
But
Right.
It's certainly
either
a-
way, whether it's curved or like this,
Yeah.
the main point is getting the numbers up there.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the main point.
It's a suggestion that we can
Yeah.
pass on to them, and they may be willing to look at it.
I think you may be right, that they probably thought if they did that, it would count against them because of the height or something, but it doesn't. So that would be a really good suggestion.
Well, that is one of those things that we can offer as a suggestion to
Right.
them if they want to look at it, but if they want to leave it this way, then it works just fine either way.
Is that going to be lit? It's not, just the tire discount.
Are the numbers?
The
Do
numbers
you know if
won't-
the numbers are lit?
The numbers won't be lit, will they?
I honestly don't know.
I think it's just the
It,
tire, it looks like.
it doesn't
it's a-
appear from the diagram there. If you look at the side view on that, it looks like a thinner piece, like
Exactly.
it's an unlighted thing, but,
It says non-illuminated
So,
okay.
on the white vinyl part where the numbers are.
Right.
on the white vinyl. Okay.
Well, I make a motion that we approve it as it is. It does meet code with a alternative recommendation or suggestion, that they could make a curve in the blackness or add more blackness around the numbers to maybe make it look a little more attractive. But otherwise, I would recommend I would make a motion that we approve it.
And also subject to the actual location being verified in the field by a surveyor.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. I just want to confirm that discussion. Is there any further discussion anybody had? All right, if there's none, do we have a second to that motion?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the second sign, the one that's on the northern property line, is essentially the same thing, except it probably does not have the numbers on it. Would that be correct? I mean, generally, we only put the numbers on one of the signs.
But is it because it's a different street?
They were proposing it for both. I don't know if there's anything against that in the code.
I don't know, usually, a lot of times, this is a little bit different, but a lot of times, the way the signs line up on two different streets, you wouldn't want the numbers on one of the streets that
Yeah.
it didn't apply to. So that's why I wanted to confirm that. But otherwise, it's essentially the same motion, same.
Yeah, because we
same
had like a
sign.
hotel or something like that. One, it was going to be confusing if they put those same numbers or something. I forgot what it was.
Well, we even had last month with the development right over here with the sign that faced Kingston Pike and the sign that faced Campbell Station.
It would be,
We put it was on one and not the other, so.
We didn't, it was something that we discussed briefly internally, and, we didn't really see a problem with it on that particular sign, considering it does still front on Campbell
Okay.
Station. If it's something,
if it's on,
again, they thought, they may have thought they had to put it on both signs, so, we can pass
Pass
that on
them.
to them, that they wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to have it on both signs, if that's something you want us to pass on to them.
just
You
so
know,
they
thi-
wouldn't ask sometimes because, well, why do I have to have those whenever some of the others did not? So that's something to ask them.
All right, is there any other discussion on this second tire discounter sign? Okay, do we have a motion?
And we'd be recommending that subject to field verification of the location for the setbacks and the 150-foot separation, and also with the same recommendations on the on potentially trying to, if they do want to leave the numbers on it, to maybe do something to more
Right.
more integrate the numbers into the overall look of the sign. That sign is located, right at 10 feet from the side property line, so that's again a pretty close setback. They're a little over 80 feet from the front, but the side's tight, so we need to make sure that it gets spotted in the field properly.
Okay. So essentially the same motion with the same subject tos and the address letters and so forth.
Yep.
Okay. Does anyone want to make that motion? All right, well, I'll make that motion with the subject tos and the suggestion there that they take a look at the sign numbers, whether they want to have it or not, and if they want to slope it or something a little bit different. Do we have a second to that motion?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so moving down to the next item on the agenda, it's the Starbucks menu board.
Okay, this again, we have one overall site plan for both signs we're looking at. The first is a menu board that is located up here, right there, number J, and then the next item on the agenda are two directional signs that are located here, close to the entrance points. So, let's see if I can make this stupid thing work. Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a request for a menu board for the new Starbucks that's going in at the Farragut Gateway development here on the corner. I think you're all familiar with the location.
Oh, yeah.
The regulations allow for a maximum of 36 square foot for a menu board. That's what they're at here, with 23 square feet of actual message area. It is located in the mixed-use town center planning area, so they are restricted to just one menu board, and it can't exceed 36 square feet, and it can't be more than 6 feet in height. So in both respects, this sign or this menu board does meet those requirements, so they are within the town's guidelines for menu boards. We'd recommend approval of it, again, subject to verification that the menu board will be visible from adjoining properties and rights-of-way, and where its location is going to be spotted there. I think one thing to point out is this board has previously approved the landscaping plan for this project, and it did include the landscaping around where the menu board is being located and the screening. So We want to make sure that it goes in the field that way, but they have already had their landscape plan approved. So we can recommend approval of this item.
Okay, well, we don't get menu boards in front of us a whole lot, but that one looks
It looks
good to me. It meets all the requirements.
I
So,
think this is the first.
do we have any further discussion on the menu board? All right, do we have a motion on the menu board?
Motion to approve, subject to the field verifications. What else did you say? Yeah,
It was subject to the field verification
on the.
that it's not visible from the adjoining
visible.
properties or the rights-of-way, and that the height meets the, and the height and the location all meet the, the proper requirements.
There you go.
All right. We have a motion with those subject tos. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. That brings us down to the Starbucks directional signs that were mentioned earlier.
This is a request for two directional signs. They're entry/exit drive signs. Again, with this being located in the mixed-use town center area and also within the sign regulations, they're allowed one per entranceway, which is what they're showing. The signs can't be more than 2 square feet in sign face area. They can't be more than 30 inches high. They also have to be located 15 feet from the roadway pavement, and then 5 feet from any driveway pavement edge or any parking lot pavement edge. The signs do meet the size requirements. We do need to have the locations verified better than they did on the plan. They didn't give us really enough detail on the plan to ensure that, where the signs were actually going to be located met standards. So our recommendation would be subject to, them clearly documenting on the plan or on notes on the plan that they're going to meet all the setback requirements. And then also the actual locations being field verified. It's going to be fairly tight on one of those corners, and so we need to make sure they get them put in the right place to meet all those parameters.
Okay. Well, both signs look legible. So are they placing the first sign as you come from Campbell Station Road? Is it going to be placed to direct you on down that access road?
Yeah.
The second sign directs you into the parking lot? Is that how it's going to line up?
I'm not exactly sure how they'll do that. I think they're just trying to direct in. I know they wanted more directional signs internal. In fact, they may actually request those and request variances for those, but based on what we could permit under the code, they can have one per entrance. So they will be putting the one down there at the first corner here, and then another one there. So that's all they could permit. So what they decided to do is go ahead and work on the signs that they can get permitted now, and then they're going to decide whether or not they want to try to apply for variances or take that sort of relief for some of the other signs. We're also working with them on permitting all their wall signage on the building as well, but that's a separate matter.
Okay.
They probably
Is there
will.
going to be an entrance or exit on Kingston Pike itself, or are they going to come in and go out the same road?
These are the only entrance and exit ways shown on this plan here. So,
It's all going to be off Campbell Station Road.
yeah, and that private, drive loop, or that, whatever it is that, the drive road that, circles back there behind OR&L Credit Union and in there and comes back out. So there's a road in there. It's not a public road, but it's a roadway that they then access off of.
Okay. Well, I think they both look good and look legible. we have any other discussion on the Starbucks directional signs? Okay, if there's no discussion, do we have a motion?
A motion that we approve, subject to verification of location of signage.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, so moving down to the last ground-mounted sign application for the Premier Eye Care Premier Center on Kingston Pike, the new development ground-mounted sign.
Again, Premier Eye Care and the larger Premier Center is requesting a 50-square-foot ground-mounted sign. It'll be a tenant panel type sign. As you can see here on the graphic, it's located 20 feet from the property / right-of-way line on Kingston Pike. It'll be internally lit. Got a few more graphics here for it. It's down there. It's a little hard to see on this, but it's located right in there. Is where they're proposing the location, about 20 foot back from the right-of-way line or the property line, which is it's really light on this plan, but it sits in there somewhere. So they meet the requirement setback for this size sign. This is a mock-up of what they're proposing it to look like in the field. It's pretty good looking sign, I think. One issue that we did have, and part of our recommendation on this is that they look to do something more architecturally compatible with the base there. I have a couple of things to show you there. Really, we're talking about that gray area down below. The sign does meet the height requirements. It's a little higher at the rear because of the slope, and that's something that they're allowed to do. To base it on the elevation of Kingston Pike, and then square it up. So the height you can see there is 12 at the front and 18 in the back on the base.
I kind of thought that they would do the colors of sort of like their building.
Yeah. Well, they're proposing to use the same materials and color as the area that's circled there. This is a picture they emailed over this morning.
So it's not gray, it's more of a tan.
It's sort of odd. It depends on how the color hits it. So if you look on there, it looks very tan.
Gray.
Well,
on
this picture, it looks very tan on the building,
Right.
and gray on the base. I'm not sure they realized on the compatibility issue. I think they mocked it up in just a hard gray, but now what they're proposing to do is use the same material and color that's on that portion of the building. One of the questions, and I think from a staff standpoint, is the majority of the building is actually brick. There's two different color bricks in that building. Staff thinks it would be preferable to use, the majority of the building material and try to match that, so brick. But that's really a decision for you all as a board as to whether you want to require them to use some sort of brick fascia on that, or whether or not you be happy with them matching the material on this portion of the building. I went out yesterday and took another picture. Gives you a slightly different view of the building there. I think you can get a better sense there of what that gray material looks like on the upper portion of the building, and then the two different tones of brick that they have on the building as a whole. So really most of the building is brick. There's another space to the left there. I think you all have probably seen this building out there. So we'd recommend approval of it subject to, the actual sign location and height being field verified again by a surveyor. The height, because they're, wanting to base it particularly off of the elevation of Kingston Pike and the slope that they're dealing with on that site. We do need a compliant landscaping plan. That's something they included a landscaping plan, or they included the landscaping plan for the overall site, but they didn't add any shrubbery around the base area, so they need to do that. They're aware of that, and they're going to get us a plan to do that. And then also some decision being made on that base color as to what type of material and color treatment they should go with on that.
Well, I think either of the bricks would look better than the gray, and preferably the redder brick or the
tanner
to
brick.
go back.
You like the darker brick?
Yeah, I think either brick would look better than the gray or whatever this is, tan color. But I think preferably the darker brick.
I have a feeling that picture wasn't really going to be great, that somehow, I think it was going to be, that
The-
color. So the picture, when I looked at it and it was gray, I'm like, ooh, but I bet you that's what they were going to do.
And that's an odd shot with the light hitting, the top of the building there. It almost looks tan. So it's. I think.
They didn't show you the material or anything that they had planned to?
No. We sent them our staff
Suggestions.
comments the other day, and they got back to us on that and asked whether or not they could use the upper material on the building or whether they needed to go with brick, and we let them know that it would really be up to the board to make that sort of decision. I think either one would work. They prefer to use that material, which is some sort of cementous board. It's a fiber cement board that they used
The
up
brick would
there.
be longer lasting.
It'd probably be more expensive too, as
Yeah, that's
well.
the reason.
It would look classier, though.
And that building is so classy you want
Yeah.
your sign to be just
true.
as much.
There will be landscaping covering up that at some
Yeah,
point, right?
yeah, to some extent, they have to add some shrubs and some landscaping around there, and it's not a high base. It's 12 to 18 inches.
It slopes down, so the base of it doesn't really show from Kingston Pike really that much either, right?
Not overly, and I mean, once the landscaping is in there too, it will some. I mean, you can see the little bit of grade change there between Kingston Pike and then it coming down. When you're out on the site, it slopes down there, more than the picture indicates.
Yeah.
But you're saying they will send a landscaping plan at some point
Probably the next.
that's compatible that we can look at?
We were proposing that, if we get it, since it's a fairly simple, I didn't include the whole landscaping plan, but it would be fairly simple addition to the plan for them to put in. If you want to have it come back to you, we can certainly bring it back to you, but
If you're okay with it, or
Yeah.
send us
as long as we get it
email.
and it meets the minimum requirements.
I think it would be fine to email it to
Yeah,
us.
just email us if you
rather than
have-
come
if you
back
have
to
any
another
s-
meeting. But,
Okay.
Well, if it's not going to be that visible, the landscaping in front of it, then their proposal of the gray would be fine, or beige, or whatever.
If they are going to choose, I mean, because it definitely needs to be match the building, but I just wonder, being on the ground, you guys would, what do you think? Would the brick be better than that
I
other
think they should
material? Or
have
would
the right to pick the material
Yeah.
that they want.
Yeah, I think
That
the
goes
problem,
with them since they built it.
But I'm just saying, would that other be as just as durable?
I don't think one's preferable to me.
it doesn't matter to me. I think they probably want the gray. The owner
The
of
lighter gray,
Premier
or
owns
tan.
the center, right?
Yes,
He
sir.
owns the property.
He owns the property.
So probably what he's trying to do is tie his sign back to his building.
Right.
Because there's a little further distance between sign and building.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
To me,
I'm
that's
totally
what I
good with the
would
gray.
want to do.
Yeah, I'm totally good with the
I
gray.
mean, I'm,
And as long as it's sort of that tannish gray, you don't have, and it's
gotta match.
durable,
I mean,
right?
It's got to be
Yeah.
identical.
It's a
to
con,
that.
it's a.
And
you
it's
said a
durable.
Masonry something. It's durable.
Okay.
Or it wouldn't be on that,
Yeah,
it's
toward the bottom.
it's listed on the actual architectural plans as a fiber cement siding.
Yeah.
So they'll have to
Well, no,
use,
that's what-
you know, that material and match the color and that sort of thing. Because under
with
under our
either one, I'm sure
under
they're
our
gonna go with the
requirements,
cheaper-
it has to be architecturally compatible
Right.
with the building.
Either way, it's architecturally compatible.
Architectural compatible.
That'd be
It
fine.
matches either
Right.
the color or one of the bricks.
He's gonna go with the other
Any
one
of
'cause it's-
them. I
And
just
as you,
think.
as
I
you
think
said, it's a
okay.
fairly severe slope. It is.
And it's going to,
So, and it's pretty far, I think it'll be below Kingston
and like you
Pike
said, the
level.
landscaping is going to cover most of it
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, the building, excuse me, the building is so attractive itself. I don't think.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
it's a
Like
very
that-
attractive
that-
I've
building.
It
You know,
catches your eye, the building does, so.
from
I'm
staff,
sure they're gonna
you know,
go
from
with the
staff
cheaper
standpoint, we were just looking at it from the, you know, standpoint that the majority of the building is, and the principal, you know, material of the building is
Oh, it
brick,
is,
but,
it
you know,
is.
they do have that large upper portion there. It was approved that way under the architectural design guidelines. It is clearly a, you know, a material being used on the building, so it,
Yeah.
I think most of the time when we do make a ruling on this type of thing, usually one surface is dominant. Like, a lot of times the buildings are made out of brick, most of the time.
And
And
this
now,
one's-
this is a newer building that has two different types of surfaces. So I
Three,
think
actually, if you want to count
Three.
the other.
Three.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
So, and he could choose, yeah.
And that's the largest
It is the largest.
part of the building.
It is.
That
Because what
spot,
the
yes.
photography doesn't show you is there is another large section to this building on the
And
other
that's
side
why
over
he's
here.
wanting to go. I
right.
just wanted the durability. I didn't want it to be to where that, you know, that.
I think it's fine
For
as
the
it
bottom
is.
part and all that stuff, so.
Well, I think
I'm
that's a
okay.
risk they have to take.
Well, that's true.
You know?
So, that's true. But the landscaping is going to cover most of it anyway. I just did not want, when I saw the gray, I'm like, oh my gosh. He spent so much time on everything else and then to have the gray. So I think that was just kind of like a mistake, that it was probably meaning to be that color. Other than that, it looks good.
Do you know, any idea, Bart, what the other four panels, how tall each of those panels are?
Yeah.
I didn't try to, they don't really tell it, but I hope the lettering inside of those panels, I guess what I'm getting at, it will be large enough to be
Legible.
readable. And I think we've had this problem with some of the other multi-tenant signs. Sometimes those panels just aren't big enough for the letters to be large enough, and I think that's something in the future we as a town should address,
yeah.
because it is difficult to see that, and you're zipping up and down Kingston Pike and where that's located. I see that as being an issue for them, whoever rents out those other spaces, so.
If you like, I could ask them to clarify that.
That
If
is
it's
true
something-
because
I mean,
that's
it-
going to.
it's probably not gonna
That's a very good
change.
point.
Probably not going to change what we're doing here, but, you know, to me, that is an issue with our
You
multi-tenant
need to kind of
signs.
keep that in
Same
mind,
size, right?
just before that. Yeah,
I'm
because
just,
we've had
I'm just
issues
looking
with
at the
that.
base dimension there on the far right-hand
That's probably
side,
the
and,
same
you know,
size.
if that gray base is 12,
Yeah.
you know, it looks like it, you know, those panels would be a little over 12 inches high,
I don't think
perhaps.
this will be big
It's possible. It just, you know, it maybe not be to scale, so.
Yeah,
But I think I would want the lettering in there to be as large as possible, and the lettering to be block lettering
Yeah.
so that they can be read in the future. You know, that's my bigger concern with this sign, is just how are the tenants who lease those spaces going to be visible on those tenant panels, especially the two at the bottom. Is there any further discussion on this Premier Center sign? All right, if there's no further discussion, do we have a motion?
Gosh, I forgot.
All right.
Lord.
Do we have any subject twos, or we good?
yes, sir. So
A lot.
it would be subject to the actual sign location and height being field verified by a surveyor, a compliant landscaping plan being turned in for the area around the sign base. I think you've sort of provided the guidance necessary on the base material and the color. And then if you want it verified as to how big those tenant panels are going to be, I can put that in as part of the
Yeah.
as
I
part
would
of the
like to
motion.
know, and just make that as a suggestion that those be large enough, you know, block letters so they can be legible.
You're doing it?
So I will, so with all those, I'll make a motion.
It's like, make a motion just like for what Bart said.
We have a motion to approve with all of those subject tos. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's the last item on the agenda, unless you have something else we need to discuss, Bart.
I was
No,
thinking
sir, I don't.
Am I wrong? Is there something
If you have nothing else, then we'll adjourn for this month.
that they
Thank
want?
you all very much.